Hey everyone, so are you ready to dig into something that's got everyone in the true crime world kind of shaken up a bit?
Yeah, it's a wild one for sure.
It really is. And if you're into true crime, you definitely know Stephanie Harlowe.
Mhm.
Crime Weekly, the whole deal.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, huge. Well, she's kind of at the center of this whole thing, this tragedy, and it's sparking a lot of conversation.
Yeah, and it's complicated. It really is. Because, you've got a podcaster who, her whole thing is other people's tragedies, right? Now she's hit with one
Right.
in her own life, and it makes you think, about the ethics, the lines we draw. Where does the public persona end and the private life begin?
Exactly. So, okay, for those who maybe haven't heard, let's back up. September 30th, 2024, news breaks that Adam Harlowe, Stephanie's estranged husband, has died.
And this is where it gets, murky. We don't know the official cause of death.
Right.
And gotta be responsible here, no speculating. But that being said, the fan forums, they are buzzing. Some are even saying, and this is a direct quote, he died of an utterly broken heart.
Wow.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah, and you can only imagine, right? I mean, her listeners, they're used to her picking apart these cases, and now they're trying to piece together this tragedy.
Right.
And to make things even more, delicate is the right word, I guess, the announcement of Adam's death.
Yeah.
It was on the Crime Weekly subreddit, and it was locked down fast.
Yeah.
By the moderators.
Damage control.
Totally. A sign that, no one really knows what to do here.
Yeah. Uncharted territory, totally. And it gets even, more complicated. When you remember Stephanie and Adam, they were estranged, headed for divorce. It wasn't like a storybook marriage or anything.
Right.
And that just kind of adds fuel to the fire,
It does. And it's important we remember that, right? We're on the outside. We only know so much about their relationship. To make judgments, to rely on, like, fan theories, it's risky.
100%. We're talking about real people here.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get caught up in the gossip, but there are real consequences to all of this.
Exactly. It's good to be reminded of that. Speaking of different perspectives, we found this article on top natural health podcasts. Kind of a weird place to find commentary on true crime.
You're kidding? That's
Yeah.
wild.
Right. I mean, it just shows you how much this has blown up. This isn't just true crime fans talking anymore.
It is everywhere.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes you think about true crime as a whole.
Oh, absolutely.
Here's Stephanie, right? Built her career on these other people's stories, these tragedies. And now she's living one, and it's all kind of hush-hush.
It's like this weird mirror being held up. And it makes you wonder, can you profit off of true crime, off other people's pain? And then when it's your turn, ask for privacy. It's tricky. And what does this mean for shows like hers,
It really is. What are your thoughts on that? How does something like this affect the relationship between people who make content, the content itself, and then the audience? Especially with something as intense as true crime.
Well, I think you got to look at the different sides, right?
Yeah.
You have listeners who, they feel connected to Stephanie. Like they've welcomed her into their homes, their cars, They've invested time, emotion in her, in the story she tells. So when something like this happens, it's natural for them to worry, to want to know more, to offer support.
Right. And then there's the other side.
Yeah.
Where it's like almost like she's broken some unspoken agreement.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you do. You dig into these stories.
Right.
Often like really dark stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
And then when it's, her turn and it's like, whoa, hold on, some privacy, please. It's like, wait a minute.
It's a tough one, right? Because you're so used to her being the one to open up these worlds, these really tough, dark places. And it's like, I don't know, the mirror image is kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, and almost like we forget, you and I are talking about it, it's like we forget.
Oh, totally.
That these people are people with lives, with experience.
Being on the microphone.
That go way beyond, the stories they tell.
Right.
And then, boom, that line's there, and you're like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, you feel it. You feel the disconnect.
It's disorienting.
It makes you think, like, what are we owed as true crime fans? Is it just the stories, just the facts laid out? Or is it, I don't know, is it something more? Do we feel like we have some ownership over the people telling them too?
Right. Is it a transaction? Or is it like, are we in this together kind of thing?
It's a weird line, right? It gets blurry.
Super blurry. And then you add someone like Derek Levasseur to the mix.
Oh, yeah.
Stephanie's co-host. He's a big part of this.
Oh, huge. He's in a tough spot, really.
Yeah.
Trying to be there for Stephanie, but also, like, aware of all the fans, their worries.
All the eyes on him, too. It's like...
It's a tightrope walk, for sure.
Totally. So how do you think he's doing?
I think, all things considered, he's handling it well. He's been really public about Stephanie needing space, but also, mental health is important, Reach out if you're struggling, that kind of thing.
And that's kind of interesting because
Yeah.
he's got that whole other layer, right? It's not just some podcaster reacting to this.
Right.
He's been a detective. He's seen this stuff.
Exactly. He knows what it looks like up close.
Firsthand. So it's like...
It's different, yeah.
Yeah, when he's talking about this...
There's weight to it.
There's weight, he knows the real cost of this stuff,
Trauma, grief, the stuff beyond the headlines.
Totally. And I think that's what people are responding to, that realness. But even with all that, all the careful stuff he's saying, there are still people criticizing.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Saying it's all about, protecting the show,
Yeah.
The Crime Weekly brand, not about Stephanie.
It's that cynicism, man.
Sure.
Everything's a calculation.
Yeah. Is anything genuine? Is it all just for downloads?
It makes you wonder about this whole creator audience thing, Especially now, social media, the lines are so blurred. It's we forget that people are messy, they're complicated.
Right, that real life isn't like an Instagram feed.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's not always pretty, not always something you want to see, but it's real.
It's real, and it makes you wonder if there's any way to, bridge that, right?
What do you mean?
People wanting that connection, that realness, but then also needing those boundaries, that space.
Oof, yeah, that's the question, isn't it? How do you have both?
Yeah.
Especially in true crime.
Because it's heavy stuff,
It's heavy for everyone. The families involved, obviously. But the creators, too. There's a toll telling those stories.
It makes you think about it differently, for sure. It really does. Makes you think about Crime Weekly, too.
Can it even, go on?
Yeah, after all this.
A show about tragedy and the person behind it, well, she's living it now.
Can you separate that?
It's the question, right? Everyone's wondering. And no easy answers.
Yeah.
Levasseur, he's mentioned maybe coming back, but nothing for sure.
Right.
And even if they do, can it be the same show?
That's what I'm wondering. Can Stephanie, I don't know, after everything...
Go back to those other cases.
Yeah, nothing happened.
It'd be impossible, right?
It would be weird, for sure.
This elephant in the room, everyone's thinking it.
Totally. So then what do you do? How do you even begin to talk about something like this? Her own life, her grief.
Right. And keep it real, keep it respectful.
Not exploiting it for the show,
It's a tightrope, no doubt. And honestly, this is bigger than just Crime Weekly.
You think so?
This whole thing, it's it's shining a light on all of true crime, makes us remember these stories, the cases.
They're real people.
Exactly. Real pain, real loss.
And those people telling the stories.
Right, like Stephanie.
They're real too.
They feel it. Just like anyone else. Maybe, and this is a maybe, but maybe this is a chance, for the whole genre to hit pause.
Whoa, a timeout.
In a way, yeah. To think, how do we do this? How do we love these stories, but do it right?
You mean keep it entertaining, but
ethical.
Right, keep the respect there.
For the victims, the families, and, even the creators.
That's a good point.
They're not characters, they're people, right? With lives, with feelings.
It's easy to forget that, I think, when you're listening.
It's human nature. We get caught up in the story. So, after all this, what do you think? How do you feel about true crime now?
Man, that's the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It makes you think about it differently. It makes me want to be more aware,
Aware of.
Not just the case, but the impacts.
Yeah, who it touches.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Am I just here for the drama? Or am I, really thinking about the human cost?
Mm-hmm.
And those creators, like you said, they deserve respect. They deserve their space.
100%. Not just access to their whole lives because they tell a good story.
Right. Heavy stuff. So we've covered a lot. But here's the thing I keep coming back to. Does Stephanie owe us anything? Or listeners, I mean. Does she have to, share her story? Let us in on her grief?
It's a big ask, right?
It is. But she built her career on sharing.
True, but everyone grieves differently. And who are we to demand that? There's no right answer here. But it's worth asking ourselves, what do we expect from the people we listen to? And what are we willing to give them in return?
That's a good point to end on, I think. It's about respect, boundaries, all that.
It all comes back to that, yeah.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you with that to think about. Until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay informed.
Yeah.
And, let's all try to be a little more understanding, a little kinder to each other.